And lastly, I wanted to do some problems where we have to put all of these rules together because that's when it can get tricky. We might know the rules one at a time and individually, but if we have multiple rules being used in the same expression, then we need to take the expression one step at a time. And it's very important to write down each step so that we don't get lost along the way or forget a number that we had somewhere. And so remember, like I've been saying all along, when in doubt, write it all out. Okay, so this one I am going to write out as if I were doing it so you can see my thought process. There's more than one way to do these, but this one has multiple variables, it has multiple rules being involved, and I might start in the parentheses because that's what PEMDAS or order of operations says to do. So starting with the A's, I have 5 A's in the denominator and 2 in the numerator, if I were to imagine that written out. So that leaves me with, once I cancel things out or divide things out, that leaves me with 3 A's in the denominator because 5 minus 2 is 3. But I had more A's in the denominator to begin with. Now the B's, I can do the same type of thing. The B's, there's kind of an invisible 1 for that exponent on the b in the denominator. So 3 minus 1 is 2. So I have b squared, but in the numerator because I had more b's in the numerator to begin with. And then c's, I have 4 in the numerator, 2 in the denominator, so 4 minus 2 is 2. So that leaves me with 2 c's in the numerator. And then I've done everything in parentheses that I can do. Now all of that's going to get squared. Now the squared I can apply to everything inside the parentheses. So when I apply it to the A, I have 3 times 2, which is 6. So 8 to the 6 is in the denominator. When I apply it to the B, I have b squared to the second power, so 2 times 2 is 4. And then it's the same for the C, 2 times 2 is 4. And then at that point, I've done everything. I've taken care of every exponent. I've combined any terms that I can combine. You can't do anything to combine B or C or A, and so that's it. This is the final simplified expression. And I have one more to show you, and that's with negative exponents. So we haven't talked about negative exponents, but you might have seen them in another class, or this might be new to you. But when you have a negative exponent, you need to flip the base and then keep the exponent. So for example, x to the negative 3 would become 1 over x to the third. So you flip the base to be 1 over x, but you keep the exponent on it, on that base. So what this looks like in this kind of problem is if you have a fraction, then you can move anything with a negative exponent to the other side of the fraction. So for example, that a to the negative 1, it needs to be moved to the denominator because it has a negative exponent. So in the denominator, I have an a to the 1, and I also have an a to the 5th because the 5 was positive, so that a to the 5th stays where it is. Let's do the b's. So this b cubed, it has a positive exponent, so it stays exactly where it is. But the other b has a negative exponent, so it needs to move up to the numerator. So that becomes another b to the third power in the numerator, and then I've gotten rid of the negative exponent there. And I still have a negative 1 on the outside, which we'll worry about later. But now I can take care of the inside of the parentheses. So I have b to the third times b to the third. And remember, if I write that out, I'd have 3 b's in a row and another 3 b's in a row. So that's actually b to the 6th. That is the product rule. And we add the exponents there. And then in the denominator, it's the same rule. 1 plus 5 is 6. So b to the 6th over a to the 6th, and then that's to the negative 1 power. Now that negative 1 power is telling us that we need to flip our base, and our base is a fraction in this case. So the last thing we're going to do is just flip everything around to take care of the negative exponent, negative 1. And now it would be a positive 1 because I've taken care of the negative part of the exponent. So anything the 1 power is just itself. So my final answer is just a to the 6th, b to the 6th. And that's it. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a heads up for how to finish up your quiz on quizzes. And so take a minute to complete questions 4 and 5. And as always, if you have questions for me about this session or anything in our class, feel free to send me a message or an email or give me a call. Thanks for watching.